Hello and welcome to Phil Talking D20. So today's video, we're continuing the deep dive into the Advanced Player's Guide, and we're going to be looking at what new options have been brought to the original core classes from the core book. Obviously, last video we were talking about the 4 new classes, but today we're looking at alchemist, barbarian, bard, champion, druid, fighter, monk, ranger, rogue, wizard, sorcerer. And it's really, really good to see that not only have they created these new classes, but they've created a lot of content for the current existing classes too. So that's even more options and even more kind of cool feat trees and kind of class paths to really kind of get stuck into, which is super cool. So I'm going to start with Bard because this is a really quick and easy way to demonstrate what this book is kind of doing. And I think it's a really great place to start because a lot of people will immediately kind of go, Bard, the singing wussy that's really boring and you can't do anything cool with. Well, that's not true in Pathfinder 2. Oh, I'm a poet and nobody told me. So we get a new muse, which is essentially kind of a class path that kind of generally dictates the kind of the flavour, if you like, of the overall kind of level progression. You still are at liberty to pick your own feats, but obviously certain muses unlock certain special feats that specialise you and improve you and take you down a more focused path. So what's this new muse? It's called Warrior. And basically, you are a battle-trained bard. So maybe you're kind of an instrumentalist in a kind of an infantry unit, kind of designed to kind of, you know, keep the momentum going, or the kind of the unit drummer for the marching, something like that. Or maybe you're just a really hard bard who doesn't mind a really good fight, but can also play a lute. So you are essentially, you get martial weapons proficiency. So you instantly jump into kind of more combat-y weapons, which is very, very cool. And again, you've got this kind of build of combat-orientated kind of feat picks. But what's nice is, like all the other classes, when they've given them a new pathway, such as the Barbarian getting a new, what do they call them for Barbarians? They call them instincts. They get a new instinct called Superstition, and obviously Bard gets his new muse called Warrior. They've built in a lot of feats for that particular path to fully develop and round it out as if it was the same in the core book, but they've also added in additional feats on top of that for new options and new playstyles and just some new cool stuff that isn't directly tied into one thing. So pretty much all the classes get at least 1 or 2 new kind of major pathway in the form of the muses for barbarians. Alchemists gain the toxicologist research field, and then obviously a suitable number of feat picks to support that, but also some additional ones. One I quite like from Alchemist, Healing Bomb. That's right, you make a bomb, but it's a healing potion, and you can either throw it at undead and do damage to undead, or you can throw it at an opponent and it will treat them as one of your kind of your healing elixirs. So you don't have to run up and pour it in the mouth, or they don't have to drink it. It just splatters on them and heals them. Fab. And that's a level 4 feat for the old alchemist. So that's quite a good example of something that's quite cool and funky for the alchemist. Barbarian, that's I mean, there's some high level ones for Barbarian are terrifying, which is super fun. Oversized throw. This is a level 4 feat. This is quite a funny little kind of intro. With a great heave, you seize a piece of your surroundings, such as a boulder, log, table, wagon, or chunk of the earth, and hurl it at your foes. Now, it talks about size, and one of the Barbarian's previous pathways is called the Giant Totem. And when you rage, you become large. And then as you level that, if you choose to invest in it, you can pick feats that then make you become huge, and so on. So when they talk about, something that must be your size or one size smaller, you can already see how, well, if you're raging and you've become large, you could pick up something large. If you were raging and you become huge because you're a higher level, you could pick up something huge. So when they say things like wagons and boulders and so forth, they're not kidding. With this kind of bolt-in feat, you can really kind of amp that up with other feat picks, which is super funny. It does, it's a simple range weapon. It deals 1d10, and that goes up to 2d10 and then 3d10 across level progressions with feat specialization picks and all that kind of good stuff. So you can have something that's super cool and really flavoursome and just go pick up a wagon and smash it on someone's head. Hulk smash style. Who doesn't want to do that? So yeah, that's a cool one for the Barbarian there. I like that. Now, the one that I think all DMs around the world who play Pathfinder 2 will be universally rejoicing at is the champion, because they've brought back the Anti-Paladin. Woohoo! So yeah, evil champions are now have a full spread of well detailed and kind of played out kind of feat picks and class abilities. Much like the original champion, they've done a good job of not just putting them in one box and giving them a nice kind of spread across the alignments. So you've got the Desecrator. Brilliant names, aren't they? Straight out of the gate. What are you playing? Oh, I'm playing a Desecrator. Oh. So he's neutral evil. You've got the actual classic titled Anti-Paladin. He's chaotic evil. And then you've got the Tyrant, who is lawful evil. So let's have a quick kind of skim at these, because there's some fun stuff in here. So each option gets its own reaction, just like the original champion did, which were things like shield blocking, an ally, and all those kind of things, and enabling people to make reactions to get moves. There's something time to grapple them, to free them up from movement. So what they've done here is they've looked at kind of these evil kind of pathways and gone, all right, we need reactions for each of those. Iron Command is the one for the Tyrant, the lawful evil one. And basically, you're someone within 15 feet of you damages you, at which point, as a reaction, you can demand that they take a knee. So you put an impertinent foe who dared harm you in their proper place. You command your enemy to kneel before you in obedience. Kneel before the Iron Tyrant in obedience. If they dare refuse, they must pay a price in pain and anguish. The foe must choose one of the following options. The enemy kneels, dropping prone as a free action. How generous of you, evil tyrant. You've allowed them to drop prone. The enemy refuses, and you deal 1d6 mental damage to it. This obviously increases as you level, so at 5th level that spikes to 2d6, 3d6 at 9th, and so on. In addition, your strikes against the triggering creature deal an extra 1 point of damage until the end of your next turn. You choose whether that's evil damage, or negative damage. And you use that each time you use the reaction, because don't forget, this is a reaction. This isn't like a once per day thing. Every time someone's hitting you, you can be like on your knees, and if they refuse, damage, and that's free damage. Who doesn't want that? Well, the party who is the victim of the tyrant anti-paladin. But you can see what I'm saying. There's some really cool, fun stuff in there, like the reaction for the anti-paladin is basically you take damage and then you deal them damage, because you're basically like, well, you're a bit of a corn berserker, if you get the 40k reference there. But yeah, it's super cool. So there's some very, very good stuff in there. Things like all their kind of reactions and all their kind of things build out as you go. They get divine allies, much like the normal champion. And then there's feat paths that build off of those again, because like I said, there's a good, really detailed selection of feats. I think to put it in context, I'm pretty sure it's fair to say, but I'm going to count just with champion, because I know this is so that's 1, 2, I think most 3, 4, 5, 6, pale horse, expanded auras, fiendish mount. Yeah, so what was that? That was 5, wasn't it? 1. So yeah, most classes have got at least 3 or 4 pages worth of new content. Just let that sink in. And it's not like they've written in font 50, and been like 4 words per page and been like, this is a new feat, next page. There's a lot of content in here for the core classes. So again, it's a good pickup just for the expansion of the core classes. So yeah, again, hopefully that helps kind of cement in your mind kind of why it's a worthwhile book to pick up, because what I want to try and do with these reviews is give you an actual real impression of the contents, because a lot of people will just say, oh, it's great and it's got some stuff in it that's really wonderful and you should buy it. And that's not what I'm about. I want to give you examples. So champion and evil champions, don't worry, good champions. There are some feats and treats in there for you too. You've not been completely isolated and left out. There's still plenty of picks in there for the goodies. But obviously there is a good focus on a lot of content for the baddies, because you need that duality. Especially if you're playing a champion. If you're playing a good champion and you do not want to confront an evil champion in your game, why are you playing a champion? Like, that surely is the kind of the crux of gaming. It's the pinnacle, isn't it? Good champion versus evil champion in a game of first one to die losers. Who's not up for that? I am. That's for sure. So we're going to move on, have a quick gander at Cleric. Because again, Cleric, I think, is one of those classes, from my experience, that seems to be either loved or not loathed, but kind of felt as a bit of a hospital pass. I've heard a lot of people in groups kind of complain that they were maybe the last to the table, and so they've got to play the Cleric because the party's got to have a healer man. And we've all picked our classes, so you're stuck with it. That's definitely been conversations I've overheard in kind of gaming kind of parlance places. And I think that's a shame, because I think there's some really funky stuff in the 2E Cleric. But again, I think this is what Pathfinder 2 has done. They have addressed those kind of issues. Like the champion is a really good example of that. If you were to talk to a lot of players about paladins, the all-in-one box, you can only be lawful good, original kind of building block that's become champion, that's in 5th edition D&D and all that kind of other stuff, and 3.5, and it's been a really established kind of concept as a class. The reality of that is, for a lot of people, it's actually quite an annoying class, because it has this, often the players are so invested in being lawful good. Coffee in one hand, couldn't do 2 bunny rabbit ears. There we go. That they can become quite kind of almost anti-party. So that's why, as a GM, you needed an anti-paladin to come and smack them. But this is the thing. With 2E, they've taken all the classes that were put in their little boxes for many years. Gary Gygax, for example, who was one of the co-creators or founding kind of creators, if you like, of Dungeons and Dragons, because it wasn't him alone, there were other people involved, and that's a whole different video with lots of kind of, politics, not real world politics, that's awful, gamer politics, if you like. He wasn't a particular fan of magic, and that's why magic characters were so rubbish, because he didn't want you to play them. But the approach that Pathfinder 2 takes is everyone can get to have a go at everything if you choose to do that by picking the right feats and using the right build. you can make one thing that was normally very stereotypically just this thing, like Bard. If you were a Bard, you were a Bard. That was it. You were pantaloon wearing, singing and dancing, and if someone punched you, you fell over and went ow, and probably had a bit of a cry, and the fighter came and went, dog, don't hit my mate, the Bard. Now, if you take, for example, that warrior muse, you can kind of get punched and not go ow and fall on the ground and cry and go, meet my mate longsword. Have that. Which I think is wonderful. We all get to do more with classes now, which I think is super cool. And Cleric has always been, it's not so important in Pathfinder 2 to have a healer, because you can have skills-based healers and other classes can dabble in it. But if you want a real hardcore, undead hitting, party healing machine, you can't overlook Cleric at all. Especially if you combine Cleric with the healer archetype and just really amp it up to 11, and just literally be like, all the healing in the world. So, one of my favourite Cleric feats, Rapid Response, level 2 feat. So very quick out of the gate to get access to, which I like. I like that. It's a reaction, so you can do it when it's triggered. What's the trigger? An ally is reduced to 0 hit points. Man down, man down! So you work quickly and efficiently in times of danger to deliver needed assistance. You stride towards a triggering ally and gain a 10-foot speed bonus to do so. So yeah, basically, you're able to immediately hopefully guarantee, that you're right there for your round to bosh out some healing. Fab. Who doesn't want that? I think that's super cool. Now, where was the other one? Other one's right below it. This is another good pick that I really liked. It's called Radiant Infusion. So when you do use your magical healing on someone, you pump in kind of this divine energy that you kind of draw from your deity, and you restore them and revivify them with your divine energies. The power of Pelor compels you. And Bob's your uncle, you've healed them. Now, normally that's where it ends. But with this level 4 feat, it's one action to use. So if you were using the 2-action ranged heal spell, this would be your 3rd action for the round. And effectively what happens is, on their next attack, after receiving that healing, they do a d6 radiant damage additionally, on top of everything else they do. And again, as you level it up, that increases. So you basically pump so much into them that it kind of overflows and spills into their weapon, and they get this holy damage weapon that they just smash someone with. Which, if they're like an outsider, or there's something that takes additional damage from radiant damage because they have a weakness, like, boom, you're taking them to whoop-ass town. Yeah. So yeah, Cleric, not just a nerdy healer, also a power buffer. And who doesn't want to be a power buffer? Very popular in the car cleaning industry, for example, power buffers. Although I don't think clerics would particularly suit that role. They'd probably smite you or something. So that's Cleric. And again, there's a good 3 or 4 pages worth of content here for Cleric. Again, I don't want to just sit and read them all, because then there's nothing left for you to discover and be like, woo, about when you buy it. Druid, again, they get some cool stuff in here. Not a huge amount compared to other classes, but they still get at least 2 pages, which isn't bad. And they were already, Druid is already like mucho grande in the core book, because they've got all those abilities that Druids have, and they've got a lot of pathways to pick from already. So, to be fair, if you could afford, they got a surprising amount of love in Pathfinder 2, in the core book. So what this does is this just adds in some added bonus material. Verdant Weapon, basically, you get a seed, just a little seed, and you can imbue it and make it grow into a particular kind of weapon, like a staff or a spear or something like that. I think it has to be a simple weapon that's mostly wood. And then basically you can magic it into a weapon and magic it back again. And it stays in this little seed. So it's like, oh, you just walking around with a seed in your pocket, grab a weapon, which is quite funky. And there's a couple of feats that essentially grow that, develop that weapon into something that can become pretty tasty when it comes to smoting stuff. I mean, there's one that basically makes the weapon count as cold iron and silver. So you can already see where they're going with that. Oh, you're an enemy of nature? Oh, no damage reduction for you. Bosh. So yeah, Druid, pretty damn funky. There's some good stuff in there. Again, Fighter is a bit like Druid, where they only get a couple of pages of content. But again, in the core book, hugely filled out already. Like, if you don't like one of the 70 gajillion feats in the core book, and you don't like any of them, then you're probably mental. So this isn't going to help you anyway. Now, Fighter. Cut from the air. Level 10 feat. Reaction. You basically gain a +4 bonus to your armor class when someone's firing range weapons at you. So effectively they go, I will shoot you with my bow of death. And they loose off an arrow. That then enables you to make the reaction cut from the air, which automatically improves your armor class by +4. If that +4 means that attack roll misses instead of hits, you like swat the arrow out of the air with your sword, and they don't hit you, which is cool. Who doesn't want to chop swords out of the air like ching 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 ching? Yes, no arrows can harm me. So that's a funky one. I like that. It's a bit like the monk kind of snatch arrows, except you're using a sword or a weapon to do it. So yeah, that's quite a cool one, level 10 feat. So there's a good chunk of stuff in there. Monk have got some love. They get a couple of new fighting style feats, which are very cool. Now, here's some corkers in here. They've really kind of, because at first, when I actually first looked at Monk, I was a bit like, maybe there's not as much as I was kind of hoping for. And then I found Stumbling Stance, aka Drunken Master. Drunken Master's back. Now, it's only 1 feat, and it's a level 1 feat, but it's very cool, and it's bonuses to kind of feint and all that kind of stuff. And if they attack you, you get to kind of do more damage back, and all this kind of good stuff. So there's a real cool Drunken Master one in there. And there's 1-inch punch. So you can now officially be Bruce Lee in Pathfinder 2E, which is funky as. And that's a 2 or 3 action kind of ability. And you basically just do, you basically amp damage up and do more damage die the more you invest in the kind of Bruce Lee epic 1-inch punch. So yeah, right, straight out of the gate. I mean, there's obviously like 2 or 3 pages of other feats, but Drunken Master, absolute gem, proper classic. And then 1-inch punch, again, classic. So yeah, proper pleased with those. That's cool. Yeah, they get about 4 pages. Ranger gets a good chunk of love. A lot of their ones are focus spell based. So there's a really cool one that I liked that was a level 4 feat that was called Animal Feature, and it gives you a focus spell. And that focus spell obviously grants you a 1 point for your focus pool. But the gist of the spell is when you first get it, it gives you some low-level abilities that you can essentially kind of, well, I mean, they're quite loose with the description. But effectively, you draw on a particular feature of an animal. So there's like kind of bear claws, so you get a slashing attack that does like a d6 damage, or eyes of the cat, which gives you low light vision, which when you heighten it, becomes owl's eyes, which is dark vision. So yeah, again, that's quite a funky one. I really like that because it immediately made me think of the classic old school cartoon series Brave Star, which if you're of a certain age, you'll immediately know. And if you don't, you'll think, what on earth is Brave Star? This loser's talking about some old cartoon from when he was a kid. And then you'll probably YouTube it and think, oh, that looks terrible. But at the time, it was the best thing on TV as far as I was concerned. Basically, he was this, it was all set in the future. And Brave Star was this kind of big kind of Navajoan Native American sheriff who had a cyber horse and a laser pistol. And he could call upon the strength of the bear and become incredibly strong and kind of, lift things up. And he could call on the eyes of the eagle and have like supervision and the speed of the cheetah, I think, and become super fast. All sorts of really cool stuff. But he channeled kind of animal spirits to kind of empower him and make him like superhuman. Very cool. I loved it. And that's immediately where I went to with Animal Feature, because again, that in combination with a few other feats, and you're looking at kind of again, like the claw one, you're thinking about things like Wolverine, aren't you? With the kind of the shink, oh, I've got claws now. So you can be really creative with these kind of things and think outside of the box. And because they do a wonderful job of just giving you a flavour of what the spell does, not rigidly laying it out and saying it has to be like this, and if you've got an imagination, sod off. So don't shirk from being creative with these kind of things, because that's the fun of it. So yeah, that was one I liked for Ranger. Enlarged Companion is an 8th level one, an Animal Companion and Warden spells. You make your companion enormous, you gain the Enlarged Companion and Warden spell, increase the number of focus points by 1. So as we can guess there, upper size category. And as you tier up, it will go up more size categories. Which if you've got, like a bear Animal Companion and it's large, and then you want it to make it huge so that the Barbarian in the party, who when he rages becomes huge, can get on it and ride around like a lunatic, go for it. See? Synergies. The meta of Pathfinder 2e reveals itself to us through the mysteries of time. So yeah, where are we up to? Crikey, we're only just getting to Rogue. Right. Rogue gets some rackets. Rogue gets some rackets. I was a poet and nobody told me. Eldritch Trickster and Mastermind, so basically bolting in a bit more magic into the Rogue class. That's got some cool descriptions. They talk about maybe you're a supernatural cat burglar, or you're someone who's a specialist in defeating magical security systems, and that's why you need this extra magic. So that's cool. And that's basically building in a free archetype pick of a magic user class, just slapping it straight into your class for free. So not having to go, I have to wait till level 2 before I can pick one. It's just that class feature slaps in a magic archetype for free. Brilliant. And again, good chunk of cool feats in there for them. They get a good kind of 3-4 pages of cool kind of juicy feat goodness. Sorcerer gets more bloodlines. Genie, Psychopomp, Shadow, Nymph. There's going to be some outrageous Elven Nymph Sorcerer builds. And again, a chunk of extra kind of feats. Now, really funky one that I thought was quite cool, and it grows and develops as you go in kind of later feats. Ancestral blood magic. So quite a few races have the ability to pick like an ancestry feat that just gives them some innate magic, normally a cantrip or something like that. And what's brilliant is with this, that feat, when you pick it, ancestral blood magic, it includes those ancestral cantrips into your blood magic pool, which basically means that when you use some blood magic, extra things happen. And that then includes those ancestral spells in that, so that you get that constant extra bit of buff from a broader pick of spells. Now, if you've never played a sorcerer or red sorcerer, that probably means less than sod all to you. But if you have, that's useful. And again, there's a later one that improves it further as an example. So yeah, a good chunk of cool stuff in for the old Sork, which I like. I think that's cool. Soul Sight, which is one that enables you to see like life essence. So yeah, that was a cool one. So yeah, there's some good stuff in for Sorcerer. Wizard, again, Wizard gets a new thesis, and they get a chunk of new feats. They don't get as much love as Sorcerer. So I'm not too fussed about that, because again, Wizard is quite established. It's quite solid in its own right. You don't have to really kind of be worried about that. It's still got 2 pages worth of kind of feat goodness and some additional stuff. And then after that, we go into the animal companions, because there's a handful of new animal companions. Only a handful, not a huge amount. But like I said, particular favourite of mine was the riding drake. I think that's a cool one. So it's like a lizardy, dinosaur-y mount, which is funky. Can't fly, that's a pity. But it's one of those things. And then there's a huge chunk of new abilities for familiars, which with witch and wizards and things like that is brilliant. I'm going to quickly jump to one of the familiars, because it just made me laugh. So all of them, there's like a handful. There's only a handful of actual of new familiars. There's not like 50, but hopefully that's going to grow in time. But one of them is the imp, and in the description for imp, it simply says, "Imp familiars pretend to be subservient in order to trick their masters into losing their souls to hell." And that's it. And on that bombshell, it's the end of the video. No, it is that time, I'm afraid. Hopefully that's given you a really good insight into what they've done with the core classes. Like I said, there's some great content in here. It's definitely well worth a buy for that alone. If you've got any specific questions, if you're like, well, I play this class all the time, could you give me a couple more examples? Leave me a comment, share the video. I'd love to hear your feedback. And let's keep talking gaming goodness. Next video, we're going to go and dabble in the wonderful world of archetypes, because there's a huge chunk of those as well. In fact, it's a massive chunk of those, which is fab. So we're going to look at those in the next video. Anyway, take care, stay safe, stay well. Drop me a like, drop me a sub. More good content coming soon, hopefully over the weekend. And yeah, peace out. See you on the next one. Take care.